But anyway, I digress constantly, whether you want me to or not. And speaking of the indie of the week, it's time to take a look at the indie of the week. And this week, it's a little bit of an odd one.
It is, yeah. A bit quirky.
Yeah. So, where to start with this? Shall I get my ranting annoyance out of the way first?
Sure,
I think I will. Yeah.
Go for it, Joe.
So I subscribe to Wargames Illustrated. I've subscribed to Wargames Illustrated for a long time. There's shelves worth of it here, going back many decades. And they occasionally do free rule sets. This is one of them. However, if you're a Prime member, who pay the same amount as me to not get a physical product, but then get lots of extra stuff. I'm just saying, they do. Then you can get your hands on this free game. Now, I have the game, which is Thalassa, Naval Battles on the Ancient Seas.
I'm reliably informed that name actually just means sea or something in ancient Greek.
It could do, because...
Or the concept of the sea or something.
Because something like Thalassa is the hold of a ship on a trireme. But anyway, if you're a Prime member, you can get the STLs as part of your Prime membership. So if you're a 3D printy type of person, you can get the PDF rules and all the ships that you need to play.
Everything is 3D printable for it.
Everything is 3D printable. And they pay no more than me, and they get discounts on the Giants of Miniatures and other stuff, and access to the back catalogue. Not that I'm up better, but, you know, they should be paying more. Or I should be paying less. One or the other. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about Thalassa. This is a booty game, courtesy of Wargames Illustrated, and it's all about the age of the trireme, the Hellenistic period. So from about your mid 6th century BC through to 300 or so. This is your period where the Greeks clash with Greeks. Greeks clash with Persians, Greeks clash with Greeks again, repeat ad nauseum, ad infinitum. And the whole idea is you are playing out these sea battles, presumably blue, Athens, red, Sparta. That would make sense to me.
I think that would be the right way to go. Yeah.
The game itself, the rules have been put together by, I want to say, in fact, I've got his name here, so I'll go with that. Ricard Fortune Martinez.
I remember him from Room 17.
Yeah.
One of the designers from that. So.
But it's an interesting little game. There isn't much in the way of complicated bits for it. I know there's quite a lot of tokenage going on here, but we'll start with top left then. That is your ramming template.
Oh God! Just the words "ramming template" make me quite happy.
So the game itself works on the principle that you're going to be fielding mostly fleets of triremes with some pentaconters as sort of auxiliary ships. It's a D10 based system, although you do need D6 for your command dice because there's a certain amount of command and controlliness to it when you're playing through. But obviously you have to take into account things like sea, drift, the oarsmen. Weirdly, not the ships sailing. They do even point out that you shouldn't have these masts up. They would have taken these down and abandoned them somewhere. Like they'd be left on a beach until the conflict was over because you don't want your mast and your sail being ripped and smashed into bits. But just to give you an idea of that bracketing. So... if you're going dead ahead on a ram, straight down the middle, you get +1 dice. If you have to pivot to contact, you've got like in the middle, you get no bonus.
Yeah.
If you have to go to an extreme, you get -1 dice. And then you've got your distance you move. So
that's kind of cool.
3 bands where it's like you're too close, you're not really getting up much speed. In the middle is your optimal. And then the furthest one out is... also a -1 dice bracket because you've given them too much time and they can brace for impact, which is always good, clean family fun, I feel. If I throw up this, actually, it's probably an easier way to talk through it. So this is their face page. So they've done little dice in conjunction with Sarissa, who've also done the tokens and templates, but you can download those all off the Wargames Illustrated website anyway. But you generate command dice for your main ships. You also have your admiral on a ship as well, designated at the start, and then you roll your d6, and they you can use standard dice. So a 1, 2, and 3 is the little flag, which is a maneuver dice. The 6 is this sort of arrowy, windy blowing thing, which is your drift dice. The 5 is a blessing, which is the little burning, I suppose, votive offering pot to the gods. And then you also have the fleet dice, which is the 4. So you roll those at the start of the turn, and then they can be used to do those things. So it can be to drift your ship, to drift your opponent's ship. Now you can't spam them on one vessel, so you can't push one of your opponents all the way off the table. You have to sort of spread the love, so to speak. But they can also be used for rerolls, or, and this is an interesting one, the blessing pot. Some things require a blessing token to activate, but they can also be used as rerolls. However, at the end of your turn, any unused ones become victory points automatically. So presumably at the start of the game, we don't need to use many blessings. You can accumulate a nice little chunk of victory points with a cheeky roll right off the bat. The other thing they're mainly used for is to remove chaos. Chaos is kind of disorder and stress on your ships. If you've got a chaos token on you because you've sustained fire, or because you can mulligan the dice, you roll all your dice at the start, you get nothing but drifts, and you're going, this is going to be terrible for me. You can pick them up and re-roll them as long as your admiral is still around. However, his flagship gets a chaos token on it because he's suddenly decided that no, these aren't what we're going to be doing this turn.
Started bellowing.
Yeah, start bellowing and tear on from there. So the game itself uses these. Now, obviously, that big temple thing looks a bit random on the back of it. But as you can see, there are hollows on the deck here. The trireme itself can be upgraded as you play, and you can have archers or hoplites for doing boarding actions, or actual war machines, so like bolt throwers or small onager-type catapults to lob Greek fire all over people, which means as you go, you can sort of define your fleet and set it up whatever way you want. And then you just play out games until somebody's fleet either breaks and runs off, or it's nothing but flotsam and jetsam in the water. Because if I go back to the little tokens here, these little blue ones at the top. In fact, I think there's probably a better picture on the Sarissa.
Yeah, I think they break it all down a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't they? Yeah.
So when you're plowing through the middle of things, if you ram them, you're going to be the same, aren't you? Yeah, you're just going to be the same. You're just toying with me.
Enhance. Do the Blade Runner thing.
the two little ovals with the flat centerpiece. If you just go straight through somebody on a ram and sink them, then you just put those where the ship was on either side, and they now become little sort of wreckage.
That's how slice them in half.
That's also important though, because if your admiral happens to be on that ship, then he can still be rescued if you can get somebody over to him in time. Otherwise, you lose a command dice, and your governance, your sort of command and fortitude kind of dies the death a little, which is a terrible, terrible shame. I think we all agree. Nobody wants to see that happen. I'm going to go to here actually, because this is NG Castings who are making the ships. And if I go here, I can actually see these in glorious Technicolor. Or if not that, then at least you can see the sort of things that's going on. So the ships themselves are relatively big. The triremes are around 6 inches, 14 centimeters. I know that's not quite 6 inches, but you're thereabouts. The Pentaconters are smaller. But not that much smaller for the auxiliary ships. You are required to take no more than you can have more auxiliary ships than you have triremes. It is the age of triremes, so people aren't going to be spamming cheap swarms of auxiliary boats and just charging at you until all of your ships are crippled. But I think it really gives an interesting sort of dynamic of how you build your triremes up, whether you want to go for something a bit more close quarters and boarding action, or if you want to try and stay back and feather people with arrows and ballista from a distance, because you've got obviously all these options here. The reason they keep the sails on is so that you can easily differentiate one fleet from another and who's on what ship.
Big wooden ships, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just loads of them at once.
Yeah, otherwise it gets, especially because they're all supposed to be painted more or less black with pitch. So you don't really have much going on there. And if you don't want to upgrade anything, then they've just got these little sort of barrels and bits and pieces.
Nice little addition.
Yeah. The main triremes, there are 2 hull variants. So one where you can actually see all the rowers on the upper deck, and one where it's covered up, where you don't have to paint all the rowers on the upper deck. But they also, I think there's 6 sort of stern sections and a couple of different prows as well. There's one of the little penties charging around the place.
Really nice for customization, and it means that you can kind of you can mark out which one of your ships has always done kind of like the best, almost, because you're like, I know this is my like mighty ship that has managed to, smash a whole bunch of Athenian ones into splinters or something,
into dust. Just wreck them all and sell their families into slavery, which is
to row the ships.
Which is all very important. Well, the Athenians were. They were all democratic-y type people, but the game itself is turnabout. It's activation about on the ships. You can attempt to retain the activation once, although it requires a sort of a command rule, and it's a little bit difficult. And obviously, if you've got chaos and stress going on, then it becomes more difficult. But otherwise, you're going to be moving back and forward as you play out on the tabletop, and you have to account then for the movement of the ocean, which either is going left to right or right to left, depending on your side of the table. And then use your maneuver to start getting your people into a position where they can ram or they can board or that sort of thing. That little drift card, which is just literally like a playing card size thing. When you're drifting, you set it down beside your ship in the direction of the current, and then you can move your boat within it as long as the mast / center point of your boat stays within it. So it means you can slide up to, you can't go up to 90 degrees. Sorry, you can go up to 90 degrees. You can't go 90 or beyond. So 89 degrees is probably fine. But it means you can use it to slew. So if you're starting to play and you know the direction of the water and you know how far you're moving and where the drift is coming from, you can use that to bootlegger turn, handbrake turn around the back of somebody or come at them from another angle. So you've got all of these things that allow you to maneuver your fleet into a better position to do the God's own work, depending on your god of
ancient
choice.
Greek drift will be
the rules themselves are only, I want to say, like 30 pages. Might not even be 30 pages. And it contains a couple of scenarios in there as well. But while your fleets are all Greek, so they're all the same couple of ships, you can play Corinth, Crete, Sparta, or Athens. And cool. They have slight different sort of nationality rules that you can call upon in a turn. So Sparta, obviously, death before defeat. All Spartan ships in the fleet may re-roll any results of ones during the first round of combat after a boarding action. So that's quite good, whereas the Athenians are professional naval fleets, so they can re-roll any ones when making their mastery tests, and the mastery tests are used to retain possession, so you can do a double activation, or if you're attempting to do something while under chaos, because you've got various crew levels from Dunger up to veteran. Shocking, I'm pretty sure most of the Spartans should probably be ranked as Dunger most of the time. They weren't the most prolific seamen up to that point where they beat the Athenians, and nobody's seen that coming. But yeah, it's a fascinating little game.
thing that was really fascinating to me was that we'd had, at the end of last year, we had Fjord Serpents, which was this naval-based Viking game, which successfully kickstarted as well, which is amazing. Yeah,
and it's now on GameFound on the Pledge Manager if you missed it, because you can get it back.
Jerry's very happy that he's going to.
I'm really happy.
And then suddenly, at the start of the year, we got Thalassa. Is that how you say it? Thalassa? Yeah. I always say Thalassa. But anyway,
you do you. I don't speak ancient Greek, so I'm content either way.
We also now got C. That's the name again. Yeah. So that's out there. The start of this year. So clearly, there's been this really interesting twist towards naval war games. The other thing that's really cool about it is that from reading some of the design stuff they talked about on Facebook, they really wanted to go down the route of it being like naval wargaming, but without all the hassle, almost.
Yeah.
So there's not too much kind of in-depth stuff you need to worry about. It's all much more a little bit about the cinematic nature of it on the tabletop, which I think is really cool.
Because I mean, the drift template is a playing card.
Mm-hmm.
The ramming template is just that front arc, and if you're not ramming, you don't use that.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time, it's just however far you go. Now, because you're dealing with banks of rowers, you always move in a straight line forward, and then you can do like a maneuver where you can turn, or the drift where you can turn, which can be a dice if you need an extra sort of 180 type of thing. But it should be relatively quick to pick up, and then incredibly quick to start sinking ships with as well. I love big Galvy buckets of D10 as well.
The other thing that was kind of interesting, I was looking through some of the stuff they'd said. And I know one of the things that inspired the creator was kind of Jason and the Argonauts and that kind of stuff, and watching all those classic movies and things. And I think they've talked about doing some mythological stuff as well. Maybe we'll see some Titans and Leviathans and that kind of stuff.
I mean, there are talk about you can have heroes on your ships as well as as well as the admiral, which obviously help to a certain extent. I mean, you can have your Odysseus style archer / sailor. Would obviously have bonuses for that, and then maybe have a more stabby Argonaut for your boarding actions, or your Heracles or whoever it happens to be. And obviously with that massive Parthenon-like temple on the back of one of the ships, leads me to believe that we may see the mythical side sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a spectacular looking game. And like I say, if you're a Prime member, you can get it all for, the cost of your Prime subscription. If you're not a Prime member, it's £6. Sign up, download all the stuff. Bosh. Even if you don't renew your subscription.
I really I liked the NG castings and then Sarissa at the same time. Well, basically, there's going to be a lot of people who just want to play this game, so let's just do the resin casting for them. Well, the 3D printed resin casting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
and just bring that out as sets. So
where have you gone? There you are there. So you can get a starter set from Sarissa, which is the 2-player fleet plus all the tokens and 2 sets of dice for your command. Or you can just get the if I close you can just get the 2-player starter set with itself. However, if you go there, it's only 72 quid.
Yeah.
If you just want the ships, just 72 quid. And then just download the tokens, because all you really need is, your help my ships on fire, or your chaos tokens for stress marking. I mean, a couple of bags of different colored beads and away you go. You don't need a huge bundle of stuff.
The person you're playing against has 3D printed their dice, and you've bought the nice ones from Sarissa, and they start rolling them, and they're like, "These are all coming up very well for you." How did you weight these?
The alternative, I've got a big box of blank dice down here that I bought from
just get stickers,
and then just get stickers and stick the stickers on. But otherwise, it's a D6 and have fun. It's not exactly tricky stuff to do. But yeah, if you're after a hard papery copy, if you go to whatever passes for newsagents these days, are there any newsagents still alive on the high street? I think they all shut.
W.H. Smith's, go and have a look. Yeah.
We had a W.H. Smith's in Northern Ireland once. It's closed.
You have your own news agents.
It's like Bill Hicks.
I can't remember what what's it called. The
Readers.
One. Yeah. There's the one in Coleraine that sells magazines.
Oh, Eason's. No, it's long
closed.
Oh, what?
Again, what you reading for, boy? I think it's the answer to Northern Ireland. Anyway.
It's petrol stations or our news agents now.
Okay.
Damn right.
It's January's issue, so 421, you can't miss it. It's got that on the cover. On the front. And spoilers for 422, they do some painting tutorials on triremes in it.
There you go.
And there's even a couple of bonus scenarios in there. So, but yeah, definitely worth checking out if you fancy doing something a bit different. And I mean, there's no reason why you can't combine it with other things as well. So if you want to do some sort of land-sea campaign, if you want to play out the Peloponnesian War or the Persian Wars, you can do that. Although I'm not sure what Persians used. I don't think it was triremes. Whatever it was, it got smashed at Salamis. Hardney Persians. Right.
You too can recreate 302, the film that nobody cares about.
I rejected reality and substitute my own. There was no 300 Rise of the Empire. Right. We shall return with the news after this swish.